Chosen one. Lean in for a moment because what I'm about to tell you is not ordinary and it is not meant for everyone. This message carries the weight of something heaven has been trying to get your attention, about something that has been hovering around your spirit, something you've felt but couldn't fully put into words. You've been sensing a shift, a pressure, a resistance that didn't quite make sense. And today you're about to understand why. There were forces seen and unseen that tried to stop you. There were moments where the path suddenly tightened, where relationships strained without explanation, where doors you were sure would open somehow slammed shut. There were nights you felt pushed back, delayed, drained, or discouraged. You wondered why everything seemed to turn against you right when you finally started moving forward. But hear this clearly, what tried to stop you failed. Not because of your strength alone, not because you perfectly navigated every step, not because you had enough support, clarity, or certainty, but because God blocked it. There were attacks that never reached you, not because the enemy didn't send them, but because heaven intercepted them. There were betrayals that never broke you, because God stood between your heart and the blow. There were opportunities that seemed to disappear, but in truth, God removed them because they were traps in disguise. There were people who exited your life abruptly, not because you did anything wrong, but because their presence would have derailed your destiny. Right now, heaven is pulling back the curtain. You're being shown the spiritual truth behind what looked like confusion. Where you saw delay, heaven saw danger. Where you felt rejection, God created protection. Where you experienced resistance, God was redirecting you towards something greater. And though you may not have realized it, every closed door, every no, every unexpected shift was actually God positioning you for something better, something safer, something purer, something aligned with your calling. This is why you survived storms that should have taken you out. This is why your spirit stayed alive, even when your strength faded. This is why, despite everything that tried to pull you under, you're still standing right now. Not weakened, not forgotten, but chosen, protected, and preserved. In this message, I am going to reveal exactly what God blocked, why the opposition rose, and what is about to unfold in your life now that the assignment against you has failed. Stay with me because the next part of this revelation will bring clarity to things you never understood about your recent battles. And as this revelation continues to unfold, you need to understand something sacred. None of what you survived was random. None of the protection you received was accidental. What stood between you and the things that tried to break you was not luck, coincidence, or timing. It was God Himself moving with precision, intention, and authority over your life. There is a divine fingerprint on your story, one that becomes clearer the more you look back at everything you've come through. Moments where you should have fallen apart, but somehow you didn't. Times when the weight should have crushed you, but something invisible held you together. Situations where you should have made choices that would have destroyed your future, yet God redirected your steps without you even realizing it. This message is not just encouragement, it is revelation. It comes from a higher place, carrying the resonance of something heaven has been whispering over you. God has been watching you walk through battles you didn't fully understand, and now He's speaking not to warn you, but to unveil the truth behind His intervention. There were times you questioned why things went silent, why prayers seemed unanswered, why progress stalled. You assumed it meant God was distant, or perhaps you weren't doing enough. But in reality, that silence was strategic. It was God blocking access to situations, people, and environments that would have altered your destiny in ways you could not see from where you stood. He didn't just allow you to survive. He actively shielded you. He withheld certain opportunities because they would have tied your spirit to the wrong path. He slowed down your steps because the route ahead was unstable. He let certain relationships fade because aligning with them would have cost you peace, purpose, and spiritual clarity. You were not being ignored, you were being fortified. You were not being delayed, you were being preserved. You were not losing, you were being rerouted towards something that carries heaven's approval. And now God is bringing this message to you because it is time to see your journey through divine eyes. Time to understand that you were never walking alone, never unprotected, never at the mercy of what came against you. You were covered by a force far greater than anything that tried to oppose you. This word is coming to you because heaven wants you to recognize the magnitude of what has taken place. The enemy tried to interfere with your path, tried to block what was meant for you, tried to provoke confusion, discouragement, or collapse. But God stepped in. God intervened. God didn't allow the attack to accomplish its purpose. And now, as the veil lifts, you're being shown the truth. You have been spared, secured, and strategically positioned. This message is a divine invitation to step into understanding, to see beyond the natural, and to realize the depth of God's involvement in your journey. It is heaven's way of saying, you didn't just survive, I protected you because your story isn't finished yet. Because what's ahead of you carries glory, purpose, and promise. We're going deeper now. The next part reveals exactly what was coming against you and why it failed. As this revelation deepens, it's time to look directly at what was rising against you, not to stir fear, but to reveal truth. Because once you see what was trying to form around your life, you'll understand why God intervened so forcefully. What you faced was not just hardship, it was a spiritual collision. A clash between heaven's purpose for your life and the forces that wanted to derail it. There was an assignment sent against you, crafted in subtlety, wrapped in distraction, hidden in familiar faces, circumstances, and patterns. It came not as an obvious enemy, but as something that tried to slip into your life quietly. It targeted your momentum, your clarity, your confidence, your spiritual alignment. The enemy wasn't simply trying to inconvenience you. He was trying to interrupt the very chapter God was preparing to open for you. But here's the truth. The enemy didn't expect you to learn. God saw it coming long before you did. What the enemy hoped would weaken you only exposed you to heaven's protection. What was meant to entangle your emotions only pushed you closer to divine discernment. What looked like confusion was actually God clearing the path ahead of you, so nothing unclean, unstable, or unauthorized could follow you into your next season. God blocked. Emotional traps disguised as opportunities. Voices meant to discourage you. People carrying confusion, envy, or manipulation. Situations that would have drained your spirit. Doors that opened too easily because they weren't meant for you. Paths that appeared promising, but were spiritually dangerous. You may not have recognized it then, but these were traps, subtle, strategic, and specifically designed to distract you from what God was awakening inside you. And so the shaking began. Not to punish you, but to expose what could not stay with you. Not to frighten you, but to reveal what was hidden beneath the surface. Not to break you, but to clear the way for God's next move in your life. In the spirit, this moment looked like a rising storm, dark clouds trying to gather around your destiny. But before the storm could form, heaven released a counterforce, a divine wind that scattered everything the enemy was attempting to build. God dismantled plans you never even knew were being constructed. He disrupted conversations meant to tear you down. He confused the strategy of the enemy until it fell apart on its own. And that is why things suddenly shifted, why people changed, why opportunities dissolved, why relationships cracked, why environments that once felt safe became tight-heavy or uncomfortable. It was not chaos. It was divine intervention, manifesting in real time. The prophecy being unveiled today is this. The weapon was formed, but God disarmed it before it could strike. Its purpose died in God's presence. Its assignment failed under God's command. Its influence crumbled when heaven stepped between you and the attack. And now you are entering a moment where the truth becomes clear. You are being redirected to the place where blessings cannot be stolen, where peace cannot be disturbed, and where favor cannot be corrupted. God didn't just protect you, He repositioned you. Feel the gravity of this. Something powerful was trying to align against you, but it could not complete its mission. Something tried to plant delay, doubt, fear, or sabotage in your path, but God severed the connection before it took root. Something tried to infiltrate your circle, but heaven stood guard. As you reflect on the strange shifts, the changes you didn't expect, the moments that felt like loss, you'll begin to see them differently. They were not endings, they were blockages, divine blockades set by God Himself. Your steps were being preserved. Your heart was being guarded. Your destiny was being defended. And the reason this prophecy is being revealed now is because the storm that attempted to form around you is now dissolving. Its power has been cut off. Its reach has been limited. Its intention has been exposed. What tried to stop you failed because God's hand moved faster than the enemy's plan. And now that the interference has been broken, we can go deeper into the spiritual meaning behind everything you've been experiencing. Now that the veil has been pulled back and the attempted interference exposed, it's time to step deeper into the spiritual meaning of everything you've endured, because nothing in your journey was random. No shift, no loss, no delay, no closed door happened without purpose. In the realm of the Spirit, your life has been unfolding like a carefully written chapter, timed, intentional, and infused with divine strategy. To understand the depth of what God blocked you, must first understand the depth of who you are becoming. Every chosen vessel goes through seasons where the natural world seems out of sync, where the journey doesn't match the promise, where the visible reality looks nothing like the spiritual word spoken over their life. This is because the process of elevation often begins with spiritual separation. God sets apart before He lifts up. He removes before He releases. He isolates before He anoints. You weren't losing, you were being filtered. What felt like abandonment was actually purification. What felt like uncertainty was divine refinement. You were being separated from everything that could dilute your calling, corrupt your path, or distort your identity. You were stepping out of old cycles of pleasing, shrinking, carrying burdens, not meant for you, living beneath your spiritual capacity. God was pulling you out of those places so the new version of you could emerge without hindrance. This is why the pressure was so intense. This is why you felt the spiritual tension growing. This is why familiar doors no longer brought comfort. Your spirit was outgrowing environments that could not carry your future. In the spiritual realm, this season looked like a seed cracking open beneath the soil. From the outside, it seems like destruction. Inside it is transformation. A seed must break to release life. In the same way, parts of your old identity had to fracture so your anointing could rise to the surface. God was preparing a greater expansion within you, and anything that could not expand with you had to be removed. Let these metaphors sink into your spirit. The storm. You thought the storm came to sink you, but the storm came to strip away everything you didn't need for the journey. Rain washed away attachments. Wind removed dead weight. Thunder shook loose the things that were never meant to anchor you. The door you saw doors closing and assumed rejection. But in heaven's eyes, the doors were being sealed shut so you wouldn't return to places that could no longer feed your destiny. A closed door is sometimes the most powerful form of divine love. The light. When you felt directionless, you weren't abandoned, you were being guided by a subtle inner light. God shifted you from external clarity to internal discernment. He was teaching you to trust your spirit over outward signs. He was training your ears to hear His whisper above the noise. The season. You walked through a wilderness not because you were forgotten, but because God needed to quiet your environment so He could amplify your calling. In the wilderness, distractions die, temptations weaken, identity solidifies. Your anointing was being carved in silence. The journey. Your path twisted and turned in ways you didn't expect, but every curve served a purpose. God redirected you away from hidden pits, unseen snakes, spiritual ambushes. The detours were divine. The delays were protective. The waiting was preparation. Now let's unfold the deeper truth. Everything that tried to stop you came because of what God placed inside you. Opposition rises in proportion to destiny. Resistance increases in proportion to calling. Attacks intensify in proportion to spiritual authority. You weren't being targeted because you were weak. You were being targeted because you were rising. And the enemy's greatest miscalculation was assuming the pressure would crush you. He underestimated the resilience God forged into your soul. He underestimated the depth of your spirit, the strength in your endurance, the purity of your intent, the fire in your calling. Because what the enemy never understood, what he still struggles to understand, is that every time he pushed against you, it only drove you deeper into God's arms. Every time he tried to confuse you, God clarified your purpose. Every time he tried to isolate you, God surrounded you with angels. Every time he tried to exhaust you, God breathed fresh strength into your spirit. This is the spiritual meaning behind your battles. The warfare was confirmation. The shaking was activation. The losses were alignment. The discomfort was transformation. The resistance was elevation. You were being shaped into someone more resilient, more aware, more spiritually awakened, more aligned with heaven's rhythm. And now that the meaning has been revealed, you're ready to recognize the signs of confirmation that God has already placed around you. Signs that what tried to stop you has failed, and what is meant for you is already beginning to manifest. Now that the spiritual meaning has settled in your spirit, let's step into the confirmations, because God never moves without leaving traces of His hand. Even if you didn't recognize them at first, the signs have been appearing around you, signaling that what tried to stop you has failed, and that heaven is shifting your life into alignment. Some of these signs have already shown up. Others are just beginning. But each one carries the same message: the interference has been broken and God's protection has prevailed. Here are the confirmations unfolding in your life. 1. A strange, unexplainable peace. After intense pressure, you may have noticed moments where a sudden calm washed over you almost out of nowhere. Not because the circumstances changed, but because something lifted off your spirit. What once felt heavy became lighter. What once stirred anxiety now feels distant or powerless. That peace is not random. It is evidence that the spiritual assignment against you has dissolved. 2. People falling away without explanation. Some connections have faded suddenly. Conversations became strained. Energy shifted. People who once seemed aligned pulled back, distanced themselves, or were removed seemingly overnight. This wasn't rejection, it was extraction. God was pulling you away from anyone whose presence would have contaminated your next season. The separation was a sign of protection, not loss. Number 3. Doors closing that you thought would open. There were opportunities you fully expected to work out. Plans you were sure would flow smoothly. Yet they halted, stalled, or fell apart at the last second. That wasn't failure, it was divine prevention. God closed doors that would have led you into unnecessary battles or spiritual entanglements. What didn't open for you was God shielding you from future pain. 4. Heightened discernment and sensitivity. Lately, you may feel more spiritually sensitive, more aware of people's intentions, more intuitive about situations, more in tune with your inner knowing. This heightened discernment is not coincidence. It is evidence of elevation. God sharpened your spirit so you can move wisely in this next season. What tried to dull your senses failed. Your spiritual awareness has increased, not decreased. 5. Sudden redirection or shifts in desire. Maybe something you once wanted no longer feels right. Maybe your spirit feels drawn toward new paths, new ideas, new environments. Maybe you feel a gentle nudge guiding you away from old patterns. This shift is a sign that God has realigned your steps. He is drawing you toward what is meant to carry you forward. 6. Unexpected strength rising. Inside you think about it. You should be more tired than you are, more discouraged than you are, more confused than you are, and yet something inside you keeps standing up, keeps believing, keeps hoping, keeps moving forward even when circumstances try to pull you back. That strength is not your own. It is divine reinforcement. Proof that God has not only blocked what was against you, but empowered you for what's ahead. These signs are heaven's way of revealing what has already happened in the spirit. They confirm that the attack did not succeed. The interference did not hold, and the enemy's plans did not prevail. And now that you've recognized the signs, we must look at the hidden challenges that may still rise, not to hinder you, but to finalize the refining of your spirit before the fulfillment comes. Even with the confirmations appearing around you, there are still challenges that may rise on your path. Challenges not meant to break you, but to strengthen and finalize what God is forming in you. These challenges don't come as punishment. They come as refinement, as the final shaping before the blessing manifests. And understanding them will give you the endurance to keep moving without fear or confusion. One of the first hidden challenges you may face is spiritual fatigue. Not the kind that comes from physical exhaustion, but the kind that makes you wonder why you're drained, even after resting. This fatigue doesn't come because you lack strength. It comes because your spirit has been fighting battles you couldn't see. You've been carrying more spiritually than you realized. And now that the warfare is broken, your spirit is releasing the tension it held for so long. This is not weakness, this is recovery. Another challenge you may encounter is internal conflict. A tug of war between the person you used to be and the version of you that God is calling forth. When God elevates you, your old patterns, habits, and comfort zones react. They try to pull you back into familiarity. You may feel torn between moving forward and staying where things felt known. This conflict is not a sign you're on the wrong path. It's a sign you're stepping into transformation. Growth requires stretching, and stretching is rarely comfortable. You may also face moments of silence where God feels distant or quiet again. But this silence is different from before. Previously, silence came because God was protecting you. Now the silence comes because He's teaching you to trust the path ahead, even when you can't see every step. Silence at this stage is not abandonment. It's training. It's God strengthening your spiritual maturity so you can handle the blessing without wavering. Another hidden challenge is the lingering presence of old temptations, not because you're going backward, but because the enemy tests what God has refined. You may notice old insecurities resurfacing, old relationships trying to return, old doubts whispering in your ear. These don't appear to derail you, they appear so you can finally close the door with clarity instead of confusion. This is closure disguised as resistance. You may also face unexpected pressure even when things start going right. Blessings come with responsibility. Purpose comes with weight. Elevation comes with decisions that require discernment. You may feel the stretch of stepping into something bigger than before. But don't misinterpret this pressure. It doesn't mean you're unqualified. It means God trusts you with more. And perhaps one of the most subtle challenges is impatience. After everything you've been through, your spirit is eager for breakthrough. You want movement, clarity, manifestation. But impatience can cloud your discernment and pull you into the wrong opportunities. God is teaching you that the pace of His promise is perfect. What's coming is too important to rush. These challenges are not obstacles, they're indicators. Proof that you're transitioning from who you were to who you're becoming. They are not signs of defeat, but signs that your spirit is being calibrated to handle what God is preparing to release. And now that you understand the challenges, the next step is to receive the divine instructions, the sacred guidance God is placing before you to prepare for what's coming next. Now that you understand the challenges that may surface on your path, it's time to step into the sacred instructions heaven is placing before you. These aren't ordinary steps. They are spiritual directives, guidance designed to align you, strengthen you, and prepare you for the breakthrough that has already begun forming in the unseen. What's ahead of you requires readiness, and God is giving you instructions not to burden you, but to empower you. The first instruction is this: guard your atmosphere. Not every voice deserves access to your spirit. Not every energy deserves space in your environment. Not every conversation is meant for your ears. What God is building in you is sensitive, like a flame being protected from the wind. You must be intentional now. If someone drains your spirit, steals your peace, confuses your mind, or weakens your focus, create distance. You're not being rude. You're being obedient. God is calling you into a cleaner, clearer space where your spirit can breathe. The second instruction: protect your mind. Your thoughts are spiritual gateways. Elevation begins in the mind long before it manifests in the natural. God is instructing you to be deliberate with what you accept, what you imagine, what you dwell on. Replace fear with faith. Replace doubt with truth. Replace anxiety with declarations of who you really are. Renew your mind until your thoughts match the destiny God is unfolding. This is not positive thinking. It's spiritual alignment. The third instruction: move when God nudges you. In this season, obedience is your greatest weapon. What God asks of you may not always make sense in the moment. It may feel small, subtle, or unexpected. But divine nudges carry divine timing. When you feel led to release something, do it. When you sense a shift toward a new path, follow it. When God stirs your heart to speak, act, change, rebuild, or surrender, respond quickly. Delayed obedience robs you of momentum. Prompt obedience opens doors faster than prayer alone. The fourth instruction: strengthen your spiritual foundation. You can't step into a higher level with yesterday's spiritual habits. God is calling you deeper, deeper into prayer, deeper into stillness, deeper into reflection, deeper into listening. Your spirit needs nourishment for where you're going. Spend time in the presence of God until your heart stabilizes and your discernment sharpens. The clearer you become internally, the smoother your path becomes externally. The fifth instruction: release what God has already removed. One of the hardest steps is letting go of what God has closed, ended, or redirected. But clinging to what He has removed only creates emotional tension. Let go of the relationships that drifted. Let go of the opportunities that dissolved. Let go of the version of yourself you have outgrown. God cannot fill hands that refuse to release the old. You're stepping into a season where your destiny requires travel without extra weight. The sixth instruction: honor your pace. Not everything has to be rushed. Not every decision needs to be made instantly. God is guiding your pace so you don't burn out before the blessing arrives. Move with intention. Move with discernment. Move with sensitivity to what your spirit can handle. You are not competing with anyone. Your timeline is divine, and God is unfolding your journey at the speed that protects your soul. The seventh instruction: speak life over your destiny. Your words carry authority. What you declare over your life creates spiritual momentum. Speak favor, speak clarity, speak strength, speak restoration, speak abundance, speak protection, speak alignment. Heaven moves in response to faith-filled words. This is not empty affirmation. It is prophetic agreement with what God is already doing in the unseen. And finally, the 8th instruction. Stay expectant. Not anxious, not desperate, expectant. Expectation is the posture of someone who trusts God's timeline more than their own emotions. Expectation is what fuels faith. Expectation is what keeps your spirit open to receiving divine direction. Expectation is what aligns you with what heaven is preparing. These instructions are not burdens, they are invitations. Invitations to rise higher, to think clearer, to walk stronger, to move with purpose, to step into the blessing with maturity and readiness. God is shaping you through these directives so that when what's coming finally arrives, you will recognize it, steward it, and thrive within it. Because now we move into something powerful, the assurance of God's protection that surrounds you even as you take these steps. As you follow the instructions God is placing before you, understand this deeply. You are not walking this path alone. Even in the moments where you feel isolated, even when you can't sense anything shifting, even when the silence stretches longer than you expected, you are surrounded by divine protection. God has already assigned protection over your steps. What tried to stop you failed, not because you were alert, but because heaven was already in position. And that protection is not leaving you, it is increasing. There is a shield around your life that no enemy can penetrate, a spiritual covering that stands between you and every unseen attack, a hedge that guards your purpose, your mind, your heart, and your journey. You may not see it with your physical eyes, but the evidence is already in your story. There were traps set for you that you never fell into. There were conversations about you that never reached your ears. There were plots forming around you that collapsed before they could touch you. There were people planning harm whose intentions were exposed before they had the chance to act. This is not coincidence, this is covenant protection. And you're stepping into a season where God is not only protecting you from what's behind you, but also from what's ahead. Because destiny attracts both favor and resistance. And God knows the paths you're about to walk require a level of covering that only He can provide. Imagine this: a bright fire surrounding your spirit, intense, radiant, impenetrable. Winds of divine strength pushing away anything misaligned before it gets close. Angels positioned at the corners of your journey, watching over your steps with unwavering vigilance. A spiritual barrier that rejects anything that carries confusion, harm, or distraction. This is the atmosphere around you now. You are not exposed. You are not vulnerable. You are not unprotected. You are wrapped in divine assurance. And with that protection comes peace, not the kind you find externally, but the kind that settles inside your bones. The kind that reassures you even when the path is unclear. The kind that whispers, you are safe. You are guarded. You are covered. God is not only shielding you, He is guiding you with precision. Every detour He leads you through is to avoid what would have harmed you. Every pause He gives you is to protect your timing. Every delay is divine insulation from battles not meant for you. You may still feel moments of uncertainty. You may still experience traces of old fear. You may still sense remnants of past wounds. But even in those moments, you are held. You are carried. You are defended. And this protection isn't temporary. It's tied to your assignment. God invests protection where He places purpose. Because your destiny is too significant, your calling too valuable, your future too impactful to be left unguarded. So let this settle in your spirit. You are divinely protected. Not lightly, not occasionally, but fully, consistently, and intentionally. And as God protects you, He is also transforming you. The covering over your life is not just keeping danger away, it is preparing the way for fulfillment. Now it's time to step into the next part of this message, the transformation that is already taking place within you, and the fulfillment that is rising on the horizon. With God's protection covering you, something remarkable is already unfolding within your spirit. Transformation is taking place, not a small shift, not a subtle change, but a profound inward awakening that is preparing you for the fulfillment of what God has promised. You may not fully see it yet, but you can feel it. Something inside you is not the same. Something has been reborn. You're standing in a spiritual threshold, one foot leaving who you used to be, and the other stepping into who you're becoming. The old version of you has exhausted its purpose. The version that questioned your worth, doubted your calling, feared rejection, apologized for your light. That version is fading, and in its place, God is raising someone stronger, wiser, clearer, and more aligned with heaven's rhythm. Your spirit is maturing. Your discernment is sharpening. Your identity is stabilizing. Your confidence is returning. Your purpose is awakening. This is the beginning of transformation. And transformation is not loud. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks or trumpets. It begins quietly, like a gentle shift in your thoughts, a new sense of clarity, a sudden inner strength, a renewed hunger for destiny. You may find yourself thinking differently, seeing differently, responding differently, not because you're forcing change, but because God has rewritten something inside you. It's as if God has breathed fresh life into your soul. You're beginning to feel hopeful again, not blindly hopeful, but spiritually confident. You're beginning to dream again, not with fear of disappointment, but with expectation. You're beginning to trust again, not in people alone, but in God's timing, God's protection, God's plan. This is transformation. And as transformation unfolds within you, fulfillment begins to rise around you. What God blocked was never meant to harm you. It was meant to preserve the promise He is now preparing to release. You're stepping into a season where opportunities align without forcing. Doors open without begging. Connections appear without chasing. Breakthroughs manifest without pressure. Peace settles without explanation. Clarity comes without confusion. Things that once felt difficult will begin to flow. Paths that once felt tangled will begin to straighten. What once felt heavy will feel lighter. The weight you carried for years is lifting. Not because the situation changed instantly, but because you changed. You are no longer bound by the version of yourself that carried unnecessary burdens. Your transformation is ushering in your fulfillment. Imagine a sunrise after a long night, the sky slowly shifting from darkness to gold. That's your spirit right now. Imagine seeds that were buried long ago finally breaking the soil. That's your destiny emerging. Imagine a door that has been locked for years suddenly unlocking with a touch. That's the season you're entering. Fulfillment isn't something you chase. Fulfillment is something God brings when the heart, the path, and the timing align. And now all three are aligning for you. Everything you lost is finding meaning. Everything you endured is becoming strength. Everything that broke you is becoming testimony. Everything that delayed you is becoming setup. Everything that tried to stop you is becoming proof of who walks beside you. This is not the end of your story. It's the unveiling. God is about to bring you into a chapter where what once hurt you can no longer touch you, where what once intimidated you can no longer shake you, and where what once blocked you becomes the very thing God uses to lift you. Transformation has prepared you. Fulfillment is drawing near. And now, to seal everything spoken, we move into the final part, the affirmations and blessing that will anchor this word in your spirit and release peace over your next steps. As this message comes to its final chapter, let everything you've heard settle deeply into your spirit. You are walking out of what tried to break you, and you are stepping into what God has preserved for you. The storm failed. The trap failed. The attack failed. And you are still here, stronger, clearer, protected, and aligned. Before you step forward, take these affirmations into your heart. Speak them with confidence. Let them become the rhythm of your spirit in the days ahead. Let them remind you of who you are, what God blocked, and what lies before you. Affirmation 1. What was meant to stop me has no power over me. Let this truth cut through every lingering doubt. What came against you lost its influence the moment heaven intervened. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are a vessel of purpose. Affirmation 2. God's hand is on my life, guiding and protecting me. Say it until your spirit believes it fully. You have been shielded in ways you haven't even seen yet. Divine protection surrounds you like a fortress. Affirmation 3. I am rising into the destiny God prepared for me. This affirmation is your declaration of movement. You are not stuck. You are not wandering. You are ascending into the life heaven crafted for you long before you recognized your calling. Affirmation 4. Nothing formed against me will prosper now or ever. Let this one echo loudly within you. Not a single weapon, plot, or whisper of sabotage will succeed. God has already broken the assignment. Take a breath. Let these words move through you like living water, calming every fear, dissolving every doubt, strengthening every weak place. And now receive this blessing. May your steps be steady and guided. May your heart remain open, yet guarded by wisdom. May your spirit stay sensitive to God's whispers. May your path be clear and protected. May peace settle over you like a warm mantle. May strength rise within you every morning. May clarity follow you like a shadow. May blessings meet you on the road ahead. May every trap be exposed before you reach it. May every door meant for you open effortlessly. May every counterfeit assignment be revealed. May every delay be turned into divine acceleration. May your spirit remain unshaken, unbroken, and unstoppable. You are walking into a season where God goes before you, stands beside you, and covers you from behind. You are wrapped in protection, surrounded by purpose, and guided by divine intention. Step forward with confidence. Step forward with faith. Step forward knowing that what tried to stop you has already failed, and what God has prepared for you cannot be blocked, delayed, or stolen. Your story is shifting. Your breakthrough is unfolding. Your blessing is on the way. Go in peace, go in strength, and go in expectation, because God has already made the way.